Vice President Kamala Harris has picked Governor Tim Walz.
In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and their personal choices that they make. Even if we wouldn't make the same choice for ourselves, there's a golden rule. Mind your own damn business. And make no mistake, violent crime was up under Donald Trump. That's not even counting the crimes he committed.
I believe there was a reporter that had tweeted saying, you know, both someone like me and Joe Manchin are supportive of Tim Walz as the pick. And that really is no small feat. It's really kind of nuts. I am trying to think about the last time Senator Manchin and I respectfully were on the same side of an issue. And it's not common, not often that you see that. And so it really speaks to how powerfully uniting this is. And I also want to speak to a lot of our progressive values and our progressive base, because what's also interesting about this moment is that we're not leaving those values by the wayside. We are here to make sure that we push for the future that we want and the kind of country that we want for the working class. I think he's a great pick. Governor Walz also served in the House. He served in the U.S. House of Representatives for over a decade, and he actually served until 2019, and I got sworn in 2019. So we technically didn't overlap, but you know, there was some overlap in that I was there in the House. I was going through orientation while he was in the House, and you know, he was I think not just from personal experience, but from a lot of folks who served with him in the House, they all say the same thing, which is that he's a good dude. He's like a good, genuine guy. I think he really centers working class issues. As governor, they had a really tiny, slim state legislature majority, and he used that tiny majority and he governed boldly. They passed universal school lunch. They passed really powerful, strong policy, progressive policy. And not a lot of people do that. You know, if you only have a one or a handful of vote majorities, a lot of times people try to play it safe and they try to say, you know, let's not try to rock the boat too much. And he governed in a way that really communicated, when you've got the keys, you drive that sucker as far as you can. I had the privilege of traveling and seeing a lot of the country, even back in 2020, prior to COVID, or I guess 2019, prior to COVID, when I was, also campaigning on the presidential alongside Senator Sanders and other folks. And I really had the privilege of connecting with so many different kinds of communities, rural, urban, suburban, etc. And the really big thing that you learn is that, I know it kind of sounds corny, but we're all the same. We all care about the same thing, about putting food on our table, about being able to afford, rent or a mortgage, your housing, being able to go to the doctor without going bankrupt. And he really gets that. And I think the two of them together really show what America is actually about, and what our values actually are. And Trump and JD Vance are like the creepiest people you've ever met in your life. Like, truly. Like, I think, where do we even start with JD Vance? Like, he's weirdly obsessed with women's bodies and reproductive systems. They are creepily obsessed with LGBT people. Like, I don't think normal people are this concerned with what's going on in other people's situations, like you kind of keep your hands to yourself, right? They don't know how to do that. And we're here to kind of make things normal, but not just normal, actually try to commit to a policy agenda that that ensures that we make progress. And I think that we really want to try to make that part of our conversation. Sometimes one of the things that I have to communicate, like when I'm on the inside, when I'm talking to other elected officials or other people in the party, is a generational shift doesn't just mean that you're electing younger people. Like, there's a reason why young people were so supportive of Senator Sanders in 2020, why he had the most amount of youth support when there were plenty of candidates that were younger than him. There's a reason why young people elected and supported Ed Markey, Senator Ed Markey in Massachusetts, over younger candidates and options. Because I think, and something that I've heard from a lot of other elected officials before, is that young people and young voters are far more substantive than I think elected officials are used to us being in the past. Like, it's, I think a lot of elected officials had dealt with this, I don't know if it was a stereotype or their experience of young people as being apathetic or uninvolved. And if anything, right now, I feel like sometimes when people don't vote, it's not because they're uninformed. It's actually because they're very informed, and maybe they don't like their options, or maybe they're unhappy with something, but they are very keyed in and informed about what's going on. And now what I'm also sensing is like there is an enormous substance to the youth vote. They want to know about what's happening to end the war in Gaza. They want to know about what policy commitments we're going to make to stop the climate crisis. They want to know what we're going to do to guarantee health care to every American. They want to know what we're going to do about the skyrocketing costs of a college education and student debt. And that includes tons of other issues as well. Even as disappointed as one may be, because like our system of governance is highly flawed, and also, like, yes, lobbyists buy, and corporate lobbies buy enormous influence in Washington. We see it every day up close. We see corruption up close, and it is easy to get cynical and jaded and say, you know what, I'm going to tap out. But you know what? There's actually no reason to tap out. Because now we have everybody from Rashida Tlaib and Cori Bush and Ayanna Pressley and Ilhan Omar and myself in the House holding down positions and hoping to expand those positions, as we have with amazing people like Summer Lee and Delia Ramirez and Greg Casar and Maxwell Frost, and we're growing those ranks. But then also we have a real fight at the top of the ticket that is worth fighting for. And no one can tell me that Donald Trump is somehow the same as the Democratic ticket in any way, shape, or form. Try telling that to a trans kid in Tennessee, that whose president is gonna be the same. I'll tell you, it's gonna be really, really different. And we have an obligation to stand in solidarity. Tell that to a woman who's bleeding out in an ER in potentially Missouri or in another state that doesn't guarantee the same abortion rights and the same rights to reproductive justice and care that they do in other states. This isn't a game. It's not a game. And this is, in many ways, and for many people, an election of life and death. And that's not hyperbole. I am looking forward to a Democratic Party that is moving past the kind of 90s era triangulation politics and moving and getting back to our roots of being FDR Democrats, of being populist, working class, labor Democrats, with the added integration of a modern intersectional lens that is aware of racial rights that is aware of women's rights, that's aware of and fights for civil and LGBT rights, and integrates the material identity values, not just superficial. We're not talking about tokenism. We're not talking about just pure representational politics. I think people are just so much more aware that this is so much more about being the first, but it's about like embodying what a first means, which means fighting for the people and places that we come from. And I think that Tim Walz does that. I think that Kamala Harris does that. And, you know, I think that what our role is from a grassroots perspective is to continue to organize with discipline and to continue to organize with a lot of commitment on a policy basis in coalition as we stop the tide of fascism.